Hello, everyone. Welcome to UGA's College of Pharmacy Pharmcast for the Community. I'm Dr. Tim Brown, your host. I have Stacy Pfeiffer with me today. Stacy is actually a professional counselor here in town and a founding clinical director of the Banyan Tree Center, which is a holistic and integrative clinic in town that works with a group of therapists and herself to talk to families, individuals, and couples, and deals with a myriad of different types of issues such as anxiety, depression, addiction, and trauma. I've asked her to come on today because I really want to talk about what the heck well-being should look like as we're all sitting at home not interacting. Welcome, Stacy. How are you?
I am well. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
No, thanks for coming on board and talking with us. I think one of the things that I'm struggling with this day and age is that before we went to this seclusion and my employer said, to get a better insurance, you need to be in this well-being program, which had steps and I could get together with people. And what does well-being mean now that we're in seclusion? I mean, is there a different definition or is it exactly the same and we just have to do it at home?
Well, I think that, yeah, we're probably having to do it a little bit differently. But kind of one of the things I think might be happening is people are actually being able to pay attention to their own well-being. Whereas before this, life was moving at such a rapid pace that one of the things that I think we're talking a lot about and hearing a lot about is that everyone is actually kind of paying attention to what does well-being mean and what would that really look like? And I actually think it's, a general answer would be that it's kind of practicing balance right now. And really in this day and time, kind of limiting our expectations. None of us have ever done this before. So, we really have to be gentle with ourselves and others because, I don't know that anyone alive has ever been through a global pandemic. It's kind of a new thing. Maybe there's a few people, left that are still have been through something in 1918 or whatever. But this is going to be a marathon and not a race. And so, or a sprint, so we're really having to kind of reconfigure, okay, what is that going to mean? Because I think the initial stress response, that acute stress has really kind of subsided. And now we're in that place of like, oh, wow, what does this look like? And how do I take really good care of myself? And how do I take really good care of others? So I think we're just having to figure that out. Like, what is that going to look like? And I think it's just about finding balance.
Well, that's a good question. I think one of the things I've struggled with, as people would know, I've moved the podcast to my home, if you can't tell from the backdrop, because we're, obviously shelter in place. But so I'm working and I'm living in the same space.
Yes.
And I'm having trouble differentiating when I should stop working and go personal.
Yes.
Or because I'm home now, can I just wash the dishes at 2:00 and then go back to work at 2:30? It's weird having to sort of change your mindset. Is that a part of the well-being as well as kind of create that routine?
I think it absolutely is. That would be kind of the two key things. We're getting asked that question a lot. How do I balance kind of work and home when it's all merged in one place? And there's some people that have been working from home. And so, for a long time. And so they've already figured out kind of a rhythm for this. But for the rest of us, we're trying to figure that out. So I think one of the biggest things is actually creating the routine. So some of that would be just get up when you normally would. Get ready as usual. You don't need to stay in your pajamas all day. That might be comfortable and it's okay to be in comfy clothes. But I think putting on, if you wear makeup, put on your makeup. If you do your hair, do your hair. Put on some clothes, get in something that, again, is comfortable, but really makes you feel like you're still in the rhythm and routine of everyday life. The other piece would be decide ahead of time, and this may fluctuate from day to day, but what is your start and end time for the day? So, if you want to be sitting down at your, desk or wherever you're going to be working at 7:30, 8:00, 9:00, well, then let's do that routinely. And then decide ahead of time, given any emergency business things, what time do you want to end? When do you normally end? So if that's 6:00, 5:00, whatever that looks like, then let's do that. So
that's a great point. I think I struggle a bit. I don't think I know. So I have coworkers that maybe want to start later and work until 9:00 at night. I like to start early, and as you point out, in kind of, traditional workday ending.
Sure.
Should I post something on my email, for example, that says, I've stopped working for today. I'll be glad to answer your email tomorrow morning at whatever time you restart. Is that rude to do that? Or is that a way to sort of set your boundary so no one's expecting a reply to an email at 8:30 at night, for example?
Absolutely. I think that's perfect because it gives clear expectations, and people don't know what everyone's reasons are for needing to do that. Maybe they have family they have to take care of, or they have childcare, or they have dogs, or, whatever the case. There tends to be this little thing. It's kind of like when cell phones came around and now everyone thinks that you should be able to answer the phone at any given time just because it's not stuck to a wall. It should be with you, but that's not healthy or accurate. And now people are thinking, well, everybody's just sitting at home. They should be able to answer me whenever. And it's like, well, no, we still have a lot going on in our lives. So I think letting people know in a way that is kind and compassionate and says, hey, this is what's working for me. I respect that you might be working a different set of hours, and it's awesome that we have that flexibility, but I'm going to work between, this hour and this hour. And so please communicate with me between those hours, or know that that's when I'll be responding to you. And that way it kind of helps with the uncertainty. I think most people get more upset that they just don't know when you're going to write them back.
Right.
And it'll be okay if they know that, like, okay, I sent this at 10 p.m. I'm not going to hear back until the morning, then no big deal. So
Right.
I think that would really help for sure.
I think the expectation thing as well. If I answer an email at 9:00 at night, now I've kind of opened the floodgates to that person thinking I'm going to answer it. And that's a really great point about cell phones. I don't think, for my generation, we didn't always have cell phones, but for the working generation that maybe is a bit younger than me, they've never known a world where they did not have constant contact.
Yes.
And so having to create their boundary for work is a bit different, because they still have, they're open to all their friends contacting them at any hour of the day via text or whatever else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask this question then. I set my boundaries. I do what I'm supposed to do. What can I do then to recenter myself? Like, what are the things that we would recommend for people at home to do that I guess would be called well-being? In the past it was take your lunch break, don't eat at your desk. There were rules about what rules do we have about home and well-being?
Okay, that's a great question. So one of the things that actually speaks to what you just said is I do believe that you need to create a space that you're going to be doing the work in. So as part of that routine, even if it's on your kitchen table, I do believe that find the place that's going to be, okay, it's in my bedroom, it's on my kitchen table, it's on my couch. Not everyone has a home office. So decide what that's going to be, and then set up camp in the morning, and then close down camp at the end of, work camp at the end of the evening. So even if you literally had to get like a tub that your computer and all your paperwork goes into, find a way that you really set up and close down and have a designated space. So your brain begins to train itself that when I'm here and these items are out with me, this is what I'm doing. And so, that's going to be able to help kind of create a little bit more separation. So not only time, but also space. And so figuring out what that's going to be. Some people have roommates, or they have, family at home. They have to do that in their actual bedroom. That's really interruptive, obviously, with sleep. So you've got to create some boundaries for yourself that say, all right, this is work time and this is what that looks like. Maybe a fold out table, or, whatever you're going to do. So I think that's helpful as one thing. And then I have some other ideas too.
Sure. I'd be glad to hear them. I love that idea, because I know in the millenniums, I'm talking to people who work for larger banks, and many people don't have desks any longer. They have pods, and at the end of the day, they pack their pod up, they put it in their locker, and they go home. So what you're describing is very similar. You put things away in sort of a transportable unit, store it down, and then pull it back out in the morning. Or for some people, if they're lucky enough, they can just shut the door and walk out of that room if they have that home office. What other tips are there? Because I love that idea of sort of packing things away, if you will.
Yeah, that way you just kind of mentally get that space. And then I think now more than ever, it's going to be important to just really take care of ourselves, like what we talked about in the beginning, and maybe even do things that we weren't doing well when the world was still moving. And so that might be, monitor how you're going to spend your time. What do you want to do with your time, given that you've got probably some extra time? What would be a productive use of that? There's new opportunities here, and I'll speak a little bit more to that, but what do you want to do with your time? I think this is a time where we really have to regulate our thoughts. So you can't make a thought stop. You're going to think whatever you think, but you can decide whether or not to hold on to that thought. And what we think about, we bring about. So I believe we have the ability here to intentionally focus on gratitude, to focus on where there's opportunities for personal growth, for professional growth even, or relationship growth. So regulate those thoughts. The other big thing that I think is really important right now, especially now that we're out of the crisis, is to regulate our media consumption. Everybody needs to know what's going on. You do need to check in wherever you have a trusted news source, but you do not need to leave it on all day long. You don't need to be checking it multiple times a day. Yes, we were in a place where things were changing every hour or whatever. But that's not something that we really need to be doing to that degree. You could either have a trusted person that you kind of get a Reader's Digest version, for example, that they tell you once a day, here's what's going on if you're really sensitive to the stress. If you can manage it, then great, but pay attention one, maybe twice a day. That includes social media. Like, it's just not healthy for your brain right now to be doused in all of this all the time.
Got it. So should I feel guilty if I want to go for a walk at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which traditionally I wouldn't be able to do, but in my new work environment, I can make up that time on the back end if I want to. Is it
Absolutely.
okay now to not save my exercise? Can I just sort of exercise whenever I have that break in the day? Is that reasonable? I mean, some people are already dressed for exercise.
Exactly. So they can just jump on out there. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% great. And the getting outside is really important if it's at all possible. We know that the vitamin D is such a huge contributor to well-being and mental health. So just getting outside, breathing fresh air, seeing all that sunshine that we're finally beginning to get. Yeah, there's a lot of pollen and you got to, deal with that. But getting outside, and it doesn't, like you're saying, it doesn't matter really when that is. Certainly you still need to be putting in your work time, but you can be a lot more flexible. And that's one of the amazing gifts, and then exercise. That doesn't have to be done outside necessarily, but if it can be, that's all the better. You just need to be moving your body, and being physically active. That's going to help keep things regulated for you and keep your brain working at an optimal level. So I think that's really important.
Just sort of thinking about all the families that are sequestered away as I was listening to some of my friends and they have their kids at home and those kinds of aspects. I think the other side is use your backyard if you have one, play board games outside or chase the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're sequestered away with multi-generations, it's kind of like, how do you find a way to engage the grandparents all the way down to the little ones?
Yes.
So are we advocating board games again, which I love this idea of versus virtual games, but are board games coming back? Are we seeing more people talk about those now?
I think we are. People are getting really creative. I'm hearing new names of new games, and people are learning to play old, tiny, card games that maybe people haven't played since your grandparents' generation, like canasta and bridge, and of course, all types of things, and teaching little people to be able to play, and there's just such opportunity for quality time, even if you are limited on your source. Like, if you can just sit out on your porch, if you can move your body in any way, do stretching, anything that can really be done. And I think we can find ways we can do that, even if we are in really areas where we're quarantined with several people. Make it fun, get everyone together, get as many people involved as possible. That's kind of, hitting two birds with one stone, because you're connecting with people and you're motivating your brain, and you're
Right.
good thing.
Well, I guess that sort of breaks the next question that I have been struggling with in discussion. I hear people laugh about this a lot. I get text and memes from a lot of my friends about food, alcohol, maybe doing more of both of those things than I did when I, was at my physical job versus. So I'm talking to people who have drinks every night now, or they're so close to their kitchen, and so they're able to pop in and get a snack whenever they want to. How do we know? I guess the right term is, how the heck do I know if I'm drinking too much? I mean, obviously my weight's going to increase if I eat too much, but how do I know if I'm drinking too much or doing more things that I normally wouldn't do that are considered, I'll say bad for me, but you and I both know, within moderation? How do
Sure.
I set my boundaries, or how do I know if I need help?
Well, I think when it comes to both of those things, food and alcohol, for example, with alcohol in particular, there are, nationally regulated kind of guidelines for what is considered low versus high risk. And we could certainly talk about that more specifically. But in general, when it comes to both food, or alcohol or other drugs, things of that nature, I think it's really about becoming what we call mindful in the research, meaning just paying attention to when I'm going back to the refrigerator, or I'm going to have that drink and I start at 3 o'clock versus 7, or maybe I'm drinking 5 times this week when I normally drink once, or, whatever. The
Sure.
habit has changed. I mean, gosh, everything's changing, but let's just pay attention to, okay, why am I choosing this right now? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I don't want to deal with my spouse or my kids? Is it because I just want to go to sleep? What are the reasons? And if you're really kind of beginning to pay attention and again, become mindful, then that's really going to probably alter and slow that down for most people. So just paying attention. And if you really begin to wonder, like, okay, this is actually like, I'm not making it through the day if I'm not, like, I'm going to be drinking or overeating every day, I'm really struggling. Well, then it might be time to think about talking to somebody to really go over that from an individual basis and say, all right, what does this look like? I don't think there should be mass worry that we're all becoming alcoholics or binge eaters or, things like that.
Sure.
But certainly people are really reporting. I mean, you see all the memes about it. It's pretty funny.
Well, that's a really great point. I never thought about reaching out for help or talking to somebody. I mean, with virtual reality and distancing and offices are not always open. Let's say I wanted to do counseling. Let's say I thought, I think my alcohol is a little high. Let's check this out. Can I just do a one-time visit, or does that work virtually? I'm not even sure how counseling works that way.
Absolutely. So pretty much everyone, maybe not every single person, but every clinician that I know has really moved to an online format. And it's kind of crazy how actually simple it is. People are really enjoying it because they can just be in the comfort of their home, even though they're kind of getting over their home. It kind of virtually, moves you into another space for a minute. And everyone has really moved to this format so that they're able to literally they can do a phone call, or they can just send you a link, just like what we're doing today. They press a link. As long as you have internet on your phone or tablet or, computer, then you're right there and you can do a session. So it's one of those things where if you've just been wondering, like maybe you want an assessment about, you've been feeling more anxious or more down, or you're wondering about your drinking or your food consumption, certainly you can talk to someone and just get a general assessment to see, all right, how could I make almost like a coaching or consulting call? How could I make a few adjustments to manage this time? And that might be 1 or 2 sessions, really short term. Or there's people who have been thinking, man, I've been really wondering about this for a while. And people have said, maybe that would benefit me. And so this is a great time to get started because you can actually access anyone throughout the state. Everyone's licensed throughout the state of Georgia, or you can choose an Athens person where you would be able to physically see them at some point. But either way, and counseling, it's very individual as to whether it's 1 session or 6 sessions. It really just depends.
At Banyan Tree, you talk to people with like one-time visit or maybe multiple visits, but that's one of the things you guys talk about: anxiety, panic,
Yes.
trying to get through. Maybe I think I'm over drinking and answering my questions. Those are all things that can happen through 1 visit or multiple visits, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It just would depend on the
The
specific.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, and the person, but that
So
definitely happens.
I guess, Stacey, I worry a bit about, everybody's being closed in. It's, as you point out, they're getting tired of their house. They may have gained a little weight, this and that. What do we do if there's a history of mental health issues such as depression, or, they have suicide thoughts or those kinds of things? Are there ways for them to reach out for help through social distancing and virtual reality? Are there ways for them to call and sort of get in for that kind of counseling as well? Or should they be looking for a different way for help?
Oh, absolutely. Those would most certainly be cases that people would be taking on right now. I think counselors at the Banyan Tree and every other colleague I have in town, they are receiving new clients. There are hotlines that you can call. For example, if you're experiencing actual suicidal ideation, or you feel like your depression is really getting bad and you need someone, it's the middle of the night, we do have resources for that. Not necessarily at the Banyan Tree. We're not a crisis center, but we do have crisis hotlines that we could attach to this podcast. That people would have access to for sure. But counselors would absolutely take you on now and establish a new relationship. We're seeing a lot of that actually, where this is finally kind of putting them over the edge to getting help. They're saying,
Yeah.
okay, this is it. Now my anxiety is just too much, or my depression is too high, or I really am having self-harm thoughts. Maybe they're wondering if they need to take medication. We don't actually prescribe medication, but we work very closely with physicians, general practitioners, psychiatrists, people that would help get you in the door. And many times it helps. You might be able to get in with a counselor more quickly within 24 or 48 hours. And then we can do an assessment to determine if medication might be something you would consider and help you get in the door telemedically with your physician. Because
That's really a good thought. So basically, if I'm having doubts, I could work with a counselor to see if I need to escalate or go, as you point out, to a crisis center. Because, I think people need to realize it's appropriate to have a bit of depression right now, a bit of anxiety. But if you're encroaching on your life, it's wonderful that you can reach out virtually. You don't even have to leave your home. That person may guide you a bit about how to find help, or it may be a one-time session where they just put your mind at ease about what you're feeling is normal in this day and age. And I use the word normal very loosely because I don't think anybody's ever normal, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the other side of that coin, the brighter side, is obviously there's mental health issues, and I get it. But you said this earlier, people are finding themselves with a bit of extra time, right? Because I don't have to commute. I don't have this. Gosh knows I can't go to my gym right now. So I'm sort of working out at home. what are the opportunities here? How can people use this time to maybe elevate their mood or to find ways to drive them a bit further so they're not really thinking about, gosh, all this craziness that's going on in the world? How do they sort of recenter themselves? I think the better term is opportunity here for improvement.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it is. I mean, history tells us that adversity creates opportunity. And so this is definitely a once in a lifetime, again, for most people alive today. No one's ever been through anything like this. Everywhere we look across the world, people are experiencing this. They're experiencing fear, uncertainty, which most of us do not do well with uncertainty. It doesn't feel good to not know. And so I think that's just the direction we have to go, is do those really basic things, like create that routine for yourself. Find the things that make you feel good and do more of them. There may never be another time like right now where essentially the world has stopped around you. And, have you been wanting to read a book or write a book or learn to play the guitar or get better at piano? Or have you been wanting to, spend more time with an elderly person in your family and write down stories? Have you been wanting to learn how to cook something amazing, or just freshen up on those skills? Like, what's been on the list? I mean, I can't tell you how often I talk with people about wanting more time. If I just had more time. And the reality is, like, you've just been given this crazy gift of time all the time, that you could want. And it's kind of cool in a way, because we actually don't have an increase of resources necessarily. We can't just run out to the store and go buy a bunch of crap or whatever. In fact, unfortunately, sometimes the things that we really feel that we need are very hard to access. So that's making us really resourceful. And we're really having to kind of dig deep and simplify and say, well, what do I really need? And I think people are finding that they need so much less than they ever thought they did, which is kind of cool. And, so those are some of those opportunities. Like, how can I, wanting to exercise more? Okay, so get out there and make that happen and just let things unfold. What comes to mind that you've been wanting to do that you could use this for? This is really, really hard. And I don't want to, make that smaller. I mean, it is a very significant time for people. It's really stressful. Most people I talk to say there's like good days and bad days, and it was a good day today and I was fine. And then other times it's like, oh my gosh, that was a really hard day. And so that's going to happen. That's normal. But to your point, like where can we find opportunity? Because I think that's our way through this.
We're talking with Stacey Pfeiffer, who is a licensed professional therapist and counselor here in town with the Banyan Tree, which is located here in Athens. And I know you guys take care of a host of different types of folks, from couples to individuals to groups and those kinds of things. We've talked a lot today: well-being, where to go, things to work for, those kinds of things. Stacey, if you had to leave the community with 3 pearls of wisdom,
okay,
what would those 3 pearls be? How would you sum up what we've talked about today so people tuning in can sort of get a feel for maybe how to get through this and maintain their sanity?
Okay. Well, I think that, again, it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So it will not last forever. So we are going to come out on the other side. So for now, just figuring out, be flexible but open, or flexible and open, and then, create those routines to the best that you can. Decide what you want to do with your time, like we were just talking about. Now that you have more time, how can you best use that? What do you want to do with it? Because it's the gift you've been given. And so in that kind of goes with this idea that, find the opportunity to take better care of yourself and those you love.
Very nice. So basically, we need to find a hobby, improve ourselves, and love those people that are in our lives.
Yes. And be gentle with yourself,
Oh, that's a really great point. Be gentle and not have guilt, because we're all sort of dealing with this together. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Stacey, thank you so much. I know you guys do amazing work at Banyan Tree. I know that this is one of those areas that a lot of people sort of struggle with, but I love the idea that they could reach out to you or any counselor in the state and sort of get that visit to help them. I love that advice. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time. I know that your days are busy, and we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fabulous. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.